Dr. Houser, do you have knowledge of an opinion regarding the removal of Grinnell Dam, Lake Shastina?
I just visited Lake Shastina today for the first time. Again, I think there's other possible solutions. I was, in fact, told today by Jerry that there is a very inexpensive canal option for bypassing that lake and solving that problem. Those are the kinds of things that I think we should be advocating for, and creative solutions to these problems that won't disrupt the economy and the housing and it's quite a beautiful lake. So,
Dr. Houser, another debt of gratitude. Thank you for being here today.
Speak up.
The conspiracy theory dismissal of the United Nations Agenda 21 is quite frankly unacceptable, because the information's been out there since 1992, with all due respect. And so you're encouraged to please look into that in terms of connecting the dots.
okay, thank you.
Also, I've heard it said that the coho was introduced to the environment, and that would be man-made introduction. Do you have any confirmation or denial about that?
I have read about that. I don't have direct confirmation or denial, but I've read the studies on whether the coho is native to the basin, and it does look like it's pretty conclusive that it has been introduced, starting in 1895 and ever since then. So it's hard to say that it is native. There's very scant evidence and tribal folklore about salmon presence or coho salmon that isn't real very verifiable. In fact, quite a few tribal members have said that prior to the human introductions of coho, there weren't coho salmon in the basin. So I think that's a key issue that really needs to be addressed more aggressively. And may be hard to prove one way or the other, but it doesn't seem like the evidence is there to support that this being a native species.
Thank you. My final question is the studies having a proper motive, if you will. It may be unspoken, but of course the implication is there. How does one remove the proper motive from these studies so that we can get integrity in science?
That's a hard issue that I actually made some suggestions on in Reclamation, and they were heavily ignored. But it is possible to have an independent science group hired to do public trust science. So how do we make that happen? I think we would have to have a coalition of parties from all sides who agree that we want to fund the science, that it doesn't have a predetermined agenda, but fund science that says, how do we meet the goals of enhancing fisheries and without adversely affecting the economy of a river system like the Klamath, and let them go. Say, that's your only agenda, go find any answer that might help us, and make sure that they're not going to be fired because of coming up with the wrong answer. I think there are mechanisms for making this happen, but I think we have to somehow make the money that funds that independent as well. So we can't have a government agency do the science. We can't have a power company do the science. We have to have an independent group do the science.
Dr. Houser, thank you for being here tonight. As a past councilman for the Cutter Tribe and a vice chairman for Shasta people, I don't understand why there's not more attention or science with regards to the takes, with regards to gill nets by the lower tribes. It would seem that that would be a huge effect on the spotted salmon. I'm sorry, the coho salmon. it just doesn't seem like there's any conversation or information that shines any light on that. Do you have any information that you can share with us?
Well, the expert panel reports that met last summer do mention the taking of fish in the ocean, along the river, as being an issue that has to be addressed in order for populations to increase. It's just an obvious thing. If you want more fish in the river, you've got to catch less fish out of the river and out of the ocean. But that's not something I've heard much about in terms of the actual, in the EIS/EIR. I don't see very many actions to actually make progress on that issue. So there's a lot of things in these expert panel reports that came out last summer that I think are pretty good and have really been glossed over or ignored by the planners for dam removal. And I think we need to look more closely at them.
Okay, it is a few minutes after 8 o'clock. We have a couple more questions here, and we may be shutting it down soon. Thank you very much, but we'll do a couple more questions.
Thank you, Dr. Houser, for being here. The Interior Department of Game and Fish has came here twice in this county, one last fall and a year before that. And at that last one, they said when we take the dams out, it'll give us more water. I told them that I thought maybe LA'd like to know about that. They take out all the dams, they'll have more water. So the other thing you need to know is we have a place right on the Klamath River, just shortly below the hatchery up there, and they used to, when they got their quota up there, they would close the gates, and the salmon then would spawn in the river. We would watch them spawn right in front of our house. The last 3 or 4 years, the Game and Fish takes in every fish that comes up there, bangs it over the head and ships it up to Washington to be processed. So we really have a shortage of fish. Why did you do that now that they didn't do it before? And also the hatchery could raise twice the number of fish. I asked the head game and fish guy that was here, and he said, who would pay for it? Well, it looks like we could pay for more fish being raised up in the hatchery, a whole lot cheaper than taking out dams. So I just want to let you know that that's some of the stuff that's going on here. It isn't a fish problem. Thank you.
Yeah. I totally agree. We, as part of the mitigation for putting dams in and cutting off habitat, we put in hatcheries. And that was acceptable to do, 50 years ago, 75 years ago. That was the way we solved that problem. And it seems like the agencies that are operating those are kind of intentionally trying to make those fail in the situation. And also we have separation between hatchery fish and natural fish. But what about the fish who get lost and end up the next tributary and not making it to hatchery? Are they now natural? It turns out that they're genetically identical, and maybe the fish that are making it to hatchery are in fact wild, or we are if we want more fish in the river, let's use the tools we have with the hatchery.
Hi, Dr. Houser. Thank you for coming. I'm a gold miner, was a gold miner, and this whole calamity has basically destroyed my living. And I'd like to know if every now and again I get the sense that the West is so full of natural resources. I get the sense that they're just trying to shut down our natural resources to those of us that know how to log and mine and grow and fish. And I think that they have some idea of legacy, that they want to save it for on down the line, 100 years from now or 50 years from now. And I just find that contrary, and I wonder how you feel about the lockdown and lockup of the natural resources that go along with these water prohibition periods.
I agree with you. I think that we have that we're seeing those kinds of trends. But the reality is that we have a lot of people that live here, that made their lives here on the land, and we should find ways to live symbiotically with nature. So just abandoning nature of saying, go take care of yourself, isn't necessarily a solution when we've already been involved. So take the management of our forests. So we have a natural tendency as people, humans, to not like forest fire. So we've suppressed forest fire for 150 years. And so when we do get a forest fire, there's a huge fuel load that's built up, and we get a devastating fire that burns the trees to the ground.